Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Home Tech. I am Seth Johnson, and I am joined, as always, by Jason Griffin. Jason, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Seth. The bigger question is, how are you doing?
Woo! I'm all pumped up.
Congratulations, man. I'm really excited for you. I know I've said that to you before, but for our listeners who may not know what we're talking about, you and your wife just gave birth to your first baby girl. So tell us how it's going. It's
going great. Her name is Rose Charlotte. So Rose Charlotte Johnson, and she was born on the 18th at 12:30 on the money. It seems
awesome.
It's been a fun week and a half, I guess. With Christmas and everything, lots of family. I got more family coming in next week.
Oh yeah,
to make the rounds.
I know how that goes. Cue the family parade coming through. But the help is good. You'll definitely appreciate that, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about this in the pre-show. Like you and many other fathers have tried to explain in words like how it feels and what to expect, and it's just you can't explain it in words. There's no way to do it.
So true.
It's just an experience you have to go through on your own, and man, what a great one.
So true. Well, that's awesome. I'm really excited for you, and I know we took a well-deserved week off last week, so you could enjoy some time with your daughter, and I had some holiday travel as well. Got to go enjoy some time with my parents down in Arizona and hang out with the nieces and nephews and my brother and sister, and that was a lot of fun. But we're back in the saddle here, getting ready to record another show, and we're going to dive in. Before we do that, I want to send a quick shout-out. We actually had two new patrons come on board, and we want to send a big thank you to them. They both came on at the $5 level. We had James Ratcliffe and Martin Vilchis, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Martin, but James and Martin, we really do appreciate your support of the show. It means a lot to us. If you're listening and you're not familiar with what that means to become a patron, you can head over to HomeTech.fm/support, and that's where you can learn a little bit more about how you can financially support the show. You can do that for as little as $1 a month, and we really do appreciate all the people who have come on and done that. So once again, that is HomeTech.fm/support.
Absolutely, and with those two guys pitching in their $5 a month here, we are at $147 a month, which means we're $3 away from doing a live show.
Oh my! Yikes.
Which should be interesting. A heck of a way to kick off 2017. That would be crazy.
You're right. Yeah, that seems so far away. Not long ago, and we've really had some a strong swelling of support and people come on board and doing that. So, like you said, $3 more if somebody comes on at the $3 level. Seth, you and I will be kicking off the new year with a whole new deal, doing live episodes here on Home Tech. We'll have some homework to do.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yep, we can do it. I know it can be done.
Oh, I'm confident.
Yeah. Should be fun.
Definitely. Well, let's jump in. We've got just a handful of news stories we're going to touch on. No interview here tonight for our episode. We want to first touch on the fact that CES is coming right up. And Seth, I know, as we alluded to, you've been super busy. I've been a little busy myself. I have to admit, I haven't taken a ton of time to really dig in and look for what the big stories I expect to see out of CES this year. But I got to say, it's CES is just one of those shows. We talk about it every year. This will be the third year that we're covering the show, and it's just such a massive show that it can be a little bit noisy and hard to pick apart and find the relevant stories. But I know that there are always a handful that come out of there that we're interested to follow on Home Tech. I know one of the big ones for me is TV technology. That's one of the top stories that I'm always keeping an eye on, and probably one of the most relevant for our audience here. I would say most, if not all, of the TV manufacturers really kind of save their big releases and unveilings for CES. So I am excited to see what comes out of that.
Yep, me too. I know that Sony just announced that they were going to be showing off an OLED TV. I don't know if they're going to be doing that at CES, but very interesting to see them moving that direction.
Yeah. From the story that I read, and credit Julie Jacobson at CE Pro, she had an article, which is where I heard about this, but she linked to a Forbes article as well that had a little bit more information. And that article led me to believe that these may not show at CES, but who knows? I mean, Sony might surprise us. It does say that they expect to start shipping them in Q2 of 2017, so that is not too far away. So I wouldn't be completely shocked to see them show up at CES. But the article, didn't give a strong indication one way or the other that they would. It was interesting to me. Sony has, for such a long time, been really beating the drum about LCD, and they are one of I would argue probably the top LCD maker in terms of quality, and I really am a huge fan of their TVs, but they've always been very, I don't know, I'd say dismissive about OLED, and part of that I'm sure is marketing speak. They want people to be enthusiastic and buying LCD technology, so obviously they've got a dog in the fight there, but really that's been their battle cry, is that they can, particularly with their latest Z series with some of the specialized backlighting and dimming that they have on those, that they're claiming they can really match the those deep blacks that OLEDs are known for and really renowned for, and that at the same time they can get even brighter than OLEDs, which is one of the things that they feel like they can beat OLED technology on. And so it's interesting to me to see them moving in this direction. I think OLED is a great technology and really exciting. The price points on these TVs, at least the speculated price points, look to be pretty compelling. They've got a 55-inch that is rumored at $2,000 and a 65 at $3,000. So not groundbreaking prices. LG's got similar pricing on some of their sets, but exciting nonetheless.
Yeah, they're coming down though, right? Like it wasn't last year we were talking about OLEDs being 10 grand or 20 grand, and now they're down in normal price ranges for really high end decent TVs. Like that's great. I'm excited. I mean,
yeah,
Sony.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Sony's been flirting with OLED for a long time. They used to have that 20. I want to say it was like a $15,000 to $20,000 11-inch TV years ago. It was like a tiny little OLED TV, and I know a lot of their like super high end studio stuff has OLED built into it. So Sony's no stranger to it. But yeah, they've been pushing the LED TVs for so long, and I think they were just trying to ride that train as long as they could. I mean, they've got a big investment in it. So I'm glad to see the shift because OLED clearly has, for performance reasons, better specs, a better way. You don't have to it always felt like Sony was just like squeezing out the performance out of LEDs, right?
Right.
And the OLED, they don't have to play so many tricks. They can just focus on making a good picture. And I'm excited. I'm excited because this means the prices are going to come down. And, next time I need to buy a $500 TV, maybe there'll be an OLED TV.
Hey, there you go. That's a little ambitious, but who knows? TVs are crazy like that.
Yeah, well, I have LG TVs at my house, and evidently you can get some malware put on those if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, that's right. That's another TV story here, not directly related to CES, but definitely interesting. We wanted to touch on that. Our good friend Bruno over in the Hub shared a link with us to a TV that had some Android software on it, and it was infected with malware. I guess ransomware is the proper term, where there was sort of a fake note, looked like it was from the FBI, displaying on this TV and saying, hey, we caught you looking at pornographic material, and we've got snapshots of your face, and this is subject to penalty of $500, and you got to pay us in 3 days. And it's just it's crazy. I guess with smart TVs, we've got to start thinking about that stuff now.
Yeah, I actually was, before Bruno posted that, I was actually talking to the guy who posted this online, and he did say it was an older, like 3 to 4 year old LG TV that had Android running on it, which LG runs WebOS now. It's not Android anymore. And I guess from the comments that he was leaving on Twitter, it seemed like maybe they had downloaded an app that had some malware in it, trying to get some free movies or something like that. And as soon as they started to use it, the malware kicked in. The only thing is, the malware is made for phones, so it's like sideways on the TV, and you have to kind of turn your head to the left to read it, which is great. But I mean, the problem here is Android. I guess this is a policing thing with Android. If this type of malware is taking place, if it's I guess downloaded from the Play Store, or I don't even know how they got it, but it's one of those things that Android needs to police. Not really so much LG's problem, although they should have been updating the TVs with security updates and all that. So I don't know.
Well, that brings up an interesting point, because you say it's not LG's problem, but if you're a consumer who just spent, I don't know, $500,000 on an LG TV, and then it gets malware and gets bricked, that at that point it is going to become LG's problem, I think, whether they like it or not. But like you said, this is an older TV, so who knows?
The funny part is LG was saying, "Oh yeah, we can come out and fix that for $340." So he's either got to figure out how to click that link on the page and pay $500 in Bitcoin to the author of the malware, or he's going to pay $340.
The hackers just need to get their price point like a couple dollars below LG's repair cost, and then they'll be in business.
Exactly.
Oh, that's funny. Well, one more TV story we wanted to touch on here, and that is related to CES. It looks like Samsung may be bringing back a technology that, Seth, I was pretty excited about a couple of years ago, and it feels like it just sort of fizzled out, and it's quantum dots.
Quantum dots, man.
They're back.
I'm trying to remember last time I heard that. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, so Samsung is allegedly going to reveal a new line of TVs called the QLED, and the Q stands for quantum dots. And these are technology we won't dive into deeply. A lot of our listeners probably heard of it. It was getting a lot of hype a couple of years ago. It looked like it was going to be, one of the next big things in TV. But long story short, it is a cool technology. I think that it has potential. I'm not sure why it stalled out a little bit, but it has to do with just producing richer colors. It's a pretty sophisticated technology and looks intriguing. So I will be curious to see if Samsung pushes forward with this. And like I said, I just think that coming out of CES, to me, that's always the big thing is what are the TV makers doing. So I look forward to seeing what happens this year.
Yep, big year for HDR. So that's going to be exciting. I think we're going to get some really good. We're going to get, no matter what you get, if you get a TV that's coming out, Sony, Samsung, LG, these are all going to have HDR built onto them. So we're going to get some really good pictures on TVs, that's exciting.
Definitely.
So I feel like this year, and I think it's been reported widely that this year is going to be kind of a Me Too with everybody who is not Amazon, Apple, or Google jumping into the voice control market.
or Facebook now, right?
Oh yeah, Facebook. We got to talk about them later for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just CES is. I'm looking through this article here that we have from CE Pro about voice control in the smart home, and I'm seeing like these crazy little devices and who all is trying to do things. It's like, okay, well, I guess if these devices are popular and clearly Echo is, because they completely sold out before Christmas. I don't know if you caught that story, but
I did not.
They were completely sold out. Amazon had no more Echoes to ship.
Wow,
which is insane. But they said you could still go down to like third-party stores like Best Buy and Lowe's and all that, and you might be able to find them on the shelves there. But they had no more to ship, which is crazy.
That is crazy. Yeah. I have to say, I was struck this year going into the holiday season by the amount of marketing dollars I saw being pushed with Google Home and Amazon Echo, both advertising on TV at prime times too, not like off hours. They were really pushing it. And I also noticed, I thought it was interesting that we got a ton of packages shipped to our house from family and things like that from Amazon, and of course stuff that we ordered, and they all had like that blue Echo tape around it. So they were really small thing, right? I'm sure that didn't, in the grand scheme of things, cost them a lot to do that, but to me it was just emblematic of the push that they're putting behind Echo. It's a huge deal for them, you can tell, and so it'd be very interesting to see how this all shakes out in the year ahead. Yeah,
it's front and center, and that's where they want it to be. I went and saw the Star Wars movie right before Rose was born, and good for you, by the way. It'll be a while till you see another one. Yeah, exactly. We had to get it in, but we were there a little early because we didn't know if the theater was going to be packed or not, and you watch the little preview things that roll before the previews. Yep, I guess. Yeah, they do the little commercials now before the. I know what you mean. Yeah, and a good solid 5 or 10 minutes was devoted to Google Home, and I was shocked. Like they had commercials, like the 2-minute commercial spots you'd see on TV, like you're talking about, but they also had like a good solid chunk like thrown in there of experience, and this is how you use Google Home, and I was kind of blown away. Like, hey, this is pretty cool. Like they are really getting out in front of people and making the case for Google Home. And as I was shopping and walking through Best Buy and that kind of thing, they had put some serious money into making sure it was featured prominently, on an end cap and with good packaging and everything. So I think that Google's all in too. So I wouldn't count them completely out. They have a more robust ecosystem than Amazon is going to have.
Definitely. I wouldn't count Google Home out at all. They're going to be a major player there. I don't think anybody's in doubt of that. I think that it's interesting to see this huge push going on by both Google and Amazon. And just as you're talking, I'm going in my head and thinking about Apple and where are they? Because you see Siri talked about here and there, but it just doesn't feel like it's getting that same push that Echo and Google Home are by any stretch. And so I have to wonder, if they're like why that is, if they're just biding their time to see, or if they're working on a product and they don't want to tip their hand yet, or what's going on with Apple. But you've got to imagine that with Google and Amazon putting as much of their marketing muscle and inertia behind these two products, that people at the highest levels of Apple are paying attention. Now, what they're going to do with that information, it's anyone's guess, but it is interesting to contrast.
They've got to have, something is coming, and we just don't know when or what it's going to be. You and I and Richard have joked about Siri in a can for, I don't know, probably 6 to 9 months now.
Yep.
That I think will happen eventually, but keep in mind, Amazon still running, I think, 2 languages, right? It's UK English and regular English. Google is out of the gate with some ungodly amount of languages, like 25 languages and up to 40 something dialects. And then Siri is not too far behind, if not equal with what Google is doing. So those 2 devices, when they ship, they can ship worldwide, and they can ship to more people than just speak English. So I think Amazon's running really short on time as to, how they can get in and get more things done, especially if they're not supporting more languages by this time next year.
Well, that brings up an interesting point and segues in nicely into one of these other stories that we wanted to touch on, which is that the Wynn, Las Vegas, huge high-end hotel in Vegas, recently announced that they're going to equip all just under 5,000 hotel rooms with Amazon Echo. And at first, I kind of glossed over this story. It's not really home technology. It's a hotel. It's hospitality. But the more I dug into this story and thought about it, I just think there are some interesting angles to it. And we'll talk about a couple of those here, but I think one of them is what you just said, the limitation of Amazon Echo to only a couple of languages. I mean, Vegas is obviously an international tourist destination. And so you've got all kinds of people who are going to be staying there. And even if they do speak English, they may have thick accents that prevent the Echo from being able to accurately respond. And so I think that'll be a challenge. And I don't know how big of a deal this Wynn Las Vegas thing is to Amazon. I've got to imagine that it is a pretty big deal from a marketing and visibility standpoint. And so, I just wonder, I just, like you said, how long will it be until Echo at least starts to catch up on the language front?
Yeah. And I mean, let's not even talk about the security of walking into a Las Vegas hotel and having every word you say recorded onto a server somewhere.
What happens in Vegas, right?
Gets recorded on a server. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what the slogan is.
Oh, that's crazy.
Mute those things, guys.
Unplug them.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, 5,000 devices being sold doesn't seem like that big of a deal to Amazon, considering, I think they were estimating 5 million being sold.
Yep.
So that's a drop in the bucket in regards to sales. But yeah, definitely, more of a selling point for Wynn hotels, which I think it's pretty cool what they're doing. They're able to, control shades and that kind of thing. Shades and lighting, but maybe a little bit of a boost towards Amazon. I did see that the director, Charlie Kindle, was posting just this week on Twitter asking, hey, do you know anybody that does AV? We'd like to bring somebody on board that does AV integrations, knows about them. So
Seth raises his hand.
It seems like they're a little late to the game to me in what they're trying to do. I'm not fully on board with with Amazon being the leader at this point in time. I think they are still just struggling to get their feet underneath them and push the product. They got something that's stuck to the wall, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to get passed up by their competitors if they just don't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
But it's only going to go so far with the limitations that they've gotten on the product right now.
Right. And I think that that's a fair point about, the number of rooms being a drop in the bucket. But I think if you consider the number of people that are going to be cycling in and out of those rooms, and if they can ensure that those people actually have a good experience, that's a good, it's a great marketing opportunity for them. But I just have a lot of questions about, again, this is a device that is very well suited to a home where somebody can bring it and plug it in, and over a period of days or, maybe a week or two at most, they're going to learn some of the nuances of that device and how to issue commands and what works and what doesn't. And a lot of it just comes down to a learning curve, like any home technology product. And I think voice control is especially at this point susceptible to that, meaning end users don't necessarily pick it up and hit the ground running right away. And so when you've got a hotel room where somebody may be in and out of there in 1 or 2 nights, if they've never used an Echo before, like, are they really going to have a lot of enjoyable experience using it? I don't know. Maybe to play music and simple stuff like that. But it's interesting. The article, Steve Wynn is quoted as saying here that, you'll have the ability to, and I'm quoting here, say, "Alexa, I am here, open the curtains, lower the temperature, turn on the news." And I read that and I thought, you couldn't say that to Alexa.
Nope.
That would do nothing. You could say it to something like Josh AI, right? That's kind of what they're staking one of their flags on, is the fact that you can issue multiple commands and you can use more natural language. But Echo and Alexa, they're just not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I should walk in the other room and say, "Alexa, I am here," and see what she does.
Right.
I may just laugh.
I didn't understand.
What do I do when you're here?
So there's the natural language thing. There's the language thing. I'm also curious. It does mention, there was one thing in that quote that jumped out at me: turn on the news. So it does appear that they are planning to do some sort of AV integration with TVs and cable boxes of some sort. And I'm curious to know how they're making that work. Obviously, there are ways we know about in the home with something like a Control 4 system tied in with Alexa that can be done fairly easily. But again, to me, it's a question mark in the hospitality environment. How are they going to make that work and make that work reliably so that people have an enjoyable experience? Yeah.
I wonder if they're not just talking about like the news flash that you can get by, asking the Echo for, what's the news right now? And it'll sit there and tell you kind of the top stories, and they don't always make sense because it's kind of like reading random headlines. But I wonder if that's what they're talking about.
I don't know, because the story does specifically mention, and it's not as part of a quote, but the story's off of geekwire.com, and it mentions specifically, it says, in partnership with Amazon, becoming the first resort in the world in which guests can verbally control every aspect of lighting, temperature, and audio-visual components of a hotel room.
Well, it'll be interesting. Let's have to see what they come up with. Maybe when I go to Vegas in 5 years, I'll see what these guys are up to.
Realistic time frame.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear you've got your expectations in line. CES 2022.
Right. Oh man. Well, hopefully the Echoes will still be installed and working at that point in time. I'll be able to check out what they're doing. But speaking of voice control, the big news last week was this Facebook announcement from Mark Zuckerberg himself, talking about how he is building a system that he's calling fondly Jarvis, which is, of course, named after the computer from the Iron Man comic books and Avengers movies. Really interesting story. Even more interesting video, which was kind of like half marketing, half, I don't know what. Morgan Freeman does the voiceover. It wasn't cheap to make that commercial.
No, definitely not. That was interesting. You called my attention to that, and I had the same reaction as you did when you initially pointed it out to me. I watched it and I was just kind of like, what is this? Like, I understand what what Jarvis is and what he's doing, but I don't understand what the end game is for Facebook. And the video left me with more questions than answers, I would say.
Yeah. He had a nice little write-up about what he was doing himself. And Mark is a geek. He's a tinkerer. He obviously sat in his dorm room and made Facebook. And, there's plenty of documentation on that and movies about how Facebook was made. So I'm not going to go into that, but for the past year, he's been challenging himself to write an AI for his house that can learn from his voice commands and control some of the things in his house, and maybe integrate in different ways that not exactly common from what you and I see on the professional side. He's written this program in PHP, but I can see why. Facebook is actually mostly written in some kind of PHP that they use. Python and Objective-C he wrote an iOS app that does the voice recognition and voice processing for that side. So he can talk into his iPhone into a specific app and it will issue the commands that way. One of the most interesting quotes I think that I saw in the article was this one, and I'm just going to read it. In some ways, this challenge was easier than I expected. And he goes on, but one aspect that was much more complicated than I expected was simply connecting and communicating with all the different systems in my home. Jason, we have an integrator.
Yeah. You got to have some sort of sound effect for that quote.
Yeah. Oh, I got new sound effects for Christmas this year. So
yes, we'll be rolling those out in the weeks to come. It's a very, very thoughtful gift of your dad. I got to get a kick out of that.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Dad.
But yeah, that is, I think, a telling quote, and something that anyone who has dabbled in any sort of smart home integration, whether it's a home technology professional like you and myself, or somebody who's dabbled in making a HomeKit product or any other works with Nest, you name it. This is a difficult landscape, and trying to get all of these components to talk to one another is very much an exercise in herding cats very often, and just trying to find where those little quirks are. And if you don't get things working 100%, it can really detract from the experience. So I think it's interesting to hear somebody like Mark Zuckerberg, like you said, who's got a very I would say outsider's perspective, presumably on the nuts and bolts of smart home integration, make that sort of comment. I agree with you that one jumped out at me as well.
Yeah, he's got some interesting things that he's running with now. This one stood out, and I think it's kind of interesting. Crestron, he's running a Crestron system for his lights, thermostat, and doors, which I'm not sure if it's got to be security in some respect, like maybe the security system or maybe an access control. I'm not too sure, but it's got to be something along those lines. But I'm sure the lights and thermostat, absolutely, Crestron. That sounds like a great system to be working with. Sonos for music. He wrote on there a Samsung TV, which I thought was hilarious because I'm sure he only has one. And he said he had one of those Nest cams for his son Max, I believe is his name. They use it, kind of as a nanny cam.
Yep.
So another quote here: I had to reverse engineer APIs for some of these to even get to the point where I could issue a command from my computer to turn on the lights or to get a song to play. Yep. That's what happens, especially when some of these things don't have APIs. So
right.
Well, I guess they have an official one now, but
that's your Sonos dig for the week.
Yeah. Well, it's they have the favorites API, which whatever.
Don't forget recently played.
Yeah. Favorites and recently played. Yay. He goes on to say that not everything is connected these days, and that was kind of a point of frustration for him. He had to rig up things with power, like smart power switches to turn them on. He gave one example of a toaster, and kind of the problem, he just wanted to toast a piece of bread, I guess, and kick it on to toast at some point. And he had to find some toaster from the 1950s for it to work correctly. So because of all the safety things that are on toasters.
Talk about first world problems, right?
Yeah, exactly. To toast some toast. What do you do? Well, So let's talk about some of the key components of this voice control. He posted, we're not going to go into this because everybody at this point has to know what voice control is. But it's one of the big pieces of this system that everybody likes to talk about because it's, speaking to a computer that can speak back in Morgan Freeman's voice. He had similar thoughts in his post about controlling music that Alex over at Josh AI has talked to us about. Like, how do you separate, songs that are called something that don't even sound like songs, like song titles are very strange. And how do you pull those out? So he had some interesting thoughts about that kind of mirrored what Alex was saying about the struggles that Josh AI has gone through and
right.
Mastered or attempted to master it. I'm not sure, but stuff that they're working on. So I thought that was interesting. One cool aspect, vision and face recognition. Cool. This is a really cool feature. I wrote a little bullet point. Cool feature. Because you don't see this every day. He installed cameras, and I put that in quotation marks because it means he didn't use the Nest Cam he had, because there's no API for that either.
Right.
So he said there were multiple cameras that he put in. I can't imagine how ugly that has to look at your front door, but he said that was required to get a bunch of angles for the facial recognition. You can't pick up, who the person is from the back of their head. You have to see the front. And I'm sure he used, Facebook's pretty good facial recognition APIs to figure out who's at his front door. And you're able to do pretty cool things like unlock the doors. Like if you just walk up to the door and the house recognizes you, it can unlock the door. That's a cool, really
that is
cool
use.
Yeah. I'd love to do that. And if there was any false positives, you would actually have a recording of who walked in your door.
Right.
But my favorite feature of this thing was the messenger bot. And this is not voice control. This is like text control. So we all have messengers, like either we use messages or heck, a lot of people do use Facebook Messenger, and Facebook has opened that up to where you can program chat bots inside of it. And he put the Jarvis AI inside. So it's like you're talking to another one of your contacts. You just go over to Jarvis, say, turn on the lights, and boom, the lights get turned on.
Right.
That's genius.
I think that is pretty cool. I do like that. I think there are a lot of applications where, we're generally speaking, people are so used to texting now. We're so accustomed to that. It's such a big part of our the way most of us communicate. I know my wife and I text with each other a lot, and I just think about that is a convenience thing. And in some applications, it might be better for me than voice. Let's say I'm laying in bed, for instance, and I just want to text my house to turn off the lights, and I don't want to use my voice because my wife is asleep next to me or the kids are asleep or who knows. That's just right off the top of my head. But I think the point is that, texting is a great way to communicate. I do it all the time. And if I could just text with my home the way I do with, a friend to say, hey, I'm on my way home, and warm up the house and preheat the oven, right? I think that would be actually a really a neat way to do it. And I assume it would probably be a little bit easier to implement from a programming side as well.
Yeah. I mean, voice is tricky. We talked about, Alexa only knowing one language, maybe two, if you count UK English different than American English. But chatbots are out there. That's kind of been mastered. Like language processing at a text level is pretty good these days. Every time you go on to get tech support from Comcast, you get shoved into a chatbot initially until it reaches someone else. So most people don't even know when they're communicating with a chatbot these days. And I think this is a smart idea. I really hope to see this particular feature brought out into other systems. I don't know how they would do it because he's building it right into Facebook. He kind of owns Facebook, so there's that. But it would be nice. I mean, think about having a Siri contact and texting Siri, flipping over and texting Siri real quick, turn on the lights, or what's the temperature of the house, and she can interact with the house at that level. It's just a great idea, and not one I've seen before.
Yeah, I was actually, just as you were talking, I was doing a quick Google search because I do feel like I've heard of some people looking at this before. I don't think it's a brand new idea. I can't imagine that it is. I found one article, I think a product called Thington, something along those lines. This article's from back in October of this year, and it looks like a startup that along the same lines was aimed at, helping you set up a smart home, interacting with a chat bot.
Right.
So I think that, clearly there are other people out there looking at this, and not totally a novel idea, but I think it's one that's got legs. Personally, like I said, we're very accustomed to communicating like that, and if we had a similar means of communicating with our homes in that manner, I think that's something that quite a few people would latch onto.
Right. And I've got an Ecobee thermostat, so I've been kind of experimenting with HomeKit and how that works. And even, sometimes I'm like, all right, I have to think about, even swiping up from the bottom. Again, here we go with first world problems, but like swiping up from the bottom and then swiping over, like I'd much rather just, I'm already in the text or messaging app. Let's just text Siri and have her turn down the temperature. I could probably do that faster, just the way my fingers work,
Well, it's an interesting space. And I would put a call out to our listeners if there's anyone else that we're not thinking of. If you're listening and you know of other companies that are looking at this, I'd love to know about it personally. I think it's an area that I'll keep an eye on and just watch moving forward.
Chatbots, who knew, man? That's a really cool one.
That's it.
Yep.
Exactly.
Well, and so where does this go? I think we talked about this, at the top, but like, this is so weird.
It is.
He put out a call to action on the corny video that's kind of like got some hokey use cases, like the t-shirt launcher thing. But like, he definitely pulled a call to action and said, hey, if you have any ideas what you want this system to do, let us know in the comments.
Right.
And like, I can't imagine that, I know that Mark Zuckerberg did not make this video himself and call his buddy up, Morgan Freeman, to do the voiceover. Like, this was straight up Facebook marketing that did this. And this is a big project that Facebook has going on. Like, this is more than Mark at this point working on his house.
Right.
So I'm curious to see where this goes, and what it ends up being. He kind of alludes to opening up open source code at the bottom, but he said it's too tightly integrated with his own house and his own system, so it doesn't make sense. I'm wondering if this is, become some kind of works with Facebook platform that we're going to see come up in 2017.
Yeah, I can't imagine that it's just going to be a project that he tinkers with and gets to a certain point and then it goes away. Clearly, I think there's a bigger end game here. And as anything with Facebook, it's going to come down to, how can they monetize the data? And I'm not one who gets particularly bent out of shape about that. I know a lot of people have valid concerns about these companies entering the home and how we're getting these products or platforms for free or for very inexpensive, because they're basically subsidizing that cost by, taking our data and reselling it. And I understand there are concerns there. I don't personally worry about them too much. So I think that clearly there is some interest on the part of Facebook in getting into the smart home in some manner. It would be pure speculation for me to guess on what that's going to be. But obviously with the amount of publicity and, like you said, the amount of resources, that video that they made could not have been cheap to make it. And so I don't think that was them just showing off. I think there is something brewing, and it'll be really fascinating, in my opinion, to see what sort of angle Facebook comes at the smart home from.
Yeah. Well, the hub bell will be waiting right here.
That's right. Awesome. Well, let's wrap it up, Seth. We'll let you get back to your family and go enjoy some time. I want to send a quick thank you out to everybody who's listening. We really appreciate you tuning in. And once again, if you're interested in supporting the show, we would love for you to take a minute to go over to HomeTech.fm/support and check that out. You can learn how you can become a patron of the show for as little as $1 a month. So we'd really appreciate that. Absolutely. Thanks to our patrons, and thanks to everybody who listens and leaves a review on iTunes. It really helps people find the show and figure out, what we're talking about, or hopefully helps them figure out what we're talking about every week in the home automation space. So with that, Jason, I guess I'll talk to you next week. All right. Sounds good, Seth. Take care.